How is everyone? Good? All right. What'd you say? Unbelievable.
Unbelievable.
That's like Peter says, nearly perfect. Like that. Like that. We're doing a last minute mic adjustment, so give me just a second. Do want to make the quick announcement, and if you're in the online world with our webinar or Facebook Live, welcome. We have Mark Hall here with me today. Shh. Hear me. We have Mark Hall with a special edition of Broker Up, which we call an overtime, agent inspired. So a little bit different than what you've heard Mark talk on in the past. And we have discussed a few topics, some things. I've got a few surprises for him up my sleeve. I got 2 sleeves on, so. But knowing Mark, there's nothing that surprises him. Being our broker of record for Atlanta communities and near close to 2,000 agents, I'm sure he hears a lot and sees a lot on a daily basis. So I'll be able to kind of, maybe bring some additional insight from his world and how we as agents can better perform and be inspired from those suggestions and, thoughts that you have. So thank you for being here, Mark.
My pleasure.
Crew, we ready back there? Everything look good? Okay.
All right, hang on. I got to get ready. All right. So as I said, this is kind of unplugged. So I know most of you probably want to hear things and see things that you don't normally hear or see. So I figure I might as well get ready for work.
Roll up the sleeves.
And make sure that you get what you came for. So I'm prepared to say and do damn near anything. All right. So just want you to know I'm ready.
Okay. Well, I'm going to mix it up a little bit. I gave you a list of topics that I wanted to address with our agents.
You did?
But I did,
a
little bit. Yeah. But I'm going to mix it up a little bit. Especially in this market that we're in right now, we've seen many brokerages do different things because of supply and demand and lack of business, interest rates going up, buyers, kind of drying up because of the rates, et cetera. So I want to get your advice for agents during difficult times. As we am kind of already in the midst of these difficult times, we don't like to use a particular word, right?
We don't like that.
So
word.
We're not going to use that word. We're saying during difficult times, what would you suggest to our agents during difficult times?
Well, it depends. It depends on what you consider difficult times. And this is very interesting. So at West Cobb, where my office is located, when I walk out the front door of the building, Campbell and Brannon's office is to my right. And I've said this before, when I look to my right, the parking lot most days is filled. And I know it's not people coming there to get real estate advice from Campbell and Brannon. No offense to Campbell and Brannon. They're there closing transactions. And so when you talk about difficult times, you have to think in your mind that there are buyers to buy houses and sellers to sell houses. And the minute you stop doing that, the minute you think that the buyers have retreated, there's no inventory, guess what? The buyers have retreated and there's no inventory. You have to create your own reality. They talked about Steve Jobs, and they said Steve Jobs had what they called RDF, reality distortion field. And originally they called it about Steve because he'd say, well, I want this glass on this phone to be damn near indestructible. And they'd say, well, that doesn't exist. And Steve would say, yeah, it does. So go out and find it and make it and put it together. So you are in control of what you do and how the market appears to you, no one else. And the best way during difficult times, as well as good times, is to know what you want to do and then set about and do it. You have got to know what your skill set is, what you're good at, but equally what you're not good at and what you need improvement on. And if you do that, you'll be okay. Today, for instance, I had to figure out, what am I going to say in front of all these people here live? Plus, how is that going to sound on the internet? And you know what? The approach was exactly the same as if there was only one of you and we were sitting here having coffee. Nothing changed. So my point is, you have to figure out what it is you want to do and what it is you want to accomplish, and then go about doing it and accomplishing it.
Can I pull some of your personal life into it?
Sure.
All right. So many years ago, and I'm not an active Facebook, visitor. I don't post anything on Facebook, but I do know that for the various few years past, that you've been a huge proponent of fitness and Orange Theory.
Yes.
Okay. I would imagine, like myself and cycling and stuff like that, that there's days that you do not feel like you want to do it.
Every day.
Okay.
I want to be real every day. Every day I feel that way. Right.
Okay. However, does the attitude change once you get started, once you get there and get started doing your fitness?
All right. One of your fellow Atlanta Communities realtors sent me a text the other night after I went to sleep, and it was a screenshot of a book where it was highlighted about discipline. And it said, discipline is getting out of bed when you want to get out of bed, immediately when you want to get out of bed. That's discipline. And where I'm making the distinction there is that every day I get up at 4 a.m. I don't lay there and worry about getting up at 4 a.m. I just get up. Mm-hmm. And that's the key to getting anything done. If you want to do something, you've got to take the first step. And you know what happens? We talk ourselves out of that first step routinely every single day and many times throughout the day. We make a decision that we're going to, I know I need to do that, and then you don't do it. And what you need to do, in my opinion, is make it a habit. And now I have so many. All right, so today was something like 1,454 classes over 6.5 years. So today, I keep track of all this stuff. And the reason I do, so this has taught me goal setting and all these other things, because I'm a fly by the seat of my pants guy. Always have been. It's served me well, although it may have taken me longer to get somewhere or to do something, but that's my personality. I don't, like when you said, I sent you the questions. Yeah, I read them. I did read them because I really did read them, but I didn't dwell on them or anything. I knew what I wanted to accomplish because it's the real me, and I just tell it like it is. So when you talk about, I get up every day and do it, and there's a lesson there, and that is that the part of your day you can control, you ought to control it. Whatever that is, whether that's in the morning or at night or at noon or whatever, there should be a certain part of your day that you owe it to yourselves to do habitually the same way every single day, because it brings it centers you, it grounds you, and gives you the ability, by keeping that discipline, to do whatever comes next. Mm-hmm. Because I'm telling you, I'm ready for whatever comes next.
Like that. So my word would have been committed.
Okay.
But discipline.
Committed. No, I'm kidding. No.
So during adverse times, during struggles, remain committed, remain disciplined.
Yes, and go back to the basics and do what you do well. And if you don't do anything well, figure out something that you can do well that's distinctly you, and go and do that and become the best at whatever that is.
Okay. How about being passionate about it?
You should have passion. No, seriously. You should really. When you are prepared, and this is true, I've lost more than I've won in my life overall. It took me a long time. I'm a slow learner. I have to do the same thing over and over and over again before I get the lesson that I'm supposed to be getting out of it. And the reason that that's an important factor to my overall development is because I don't give up, and I keep doing the same thing routinely until I get it. And when you do that, you develop passion, because once you achieve that Maslow's hierarchy of needs, once you get to self-actualization, once you know what it is that makes you tick, you win. Now, I never said I was good. I just know what makes me tick. There's a difference there. And some people would say, well, or this, so many of us are always excusing things to ourselves, and stop doing that. Passion.
I think the next topic or next idea I want to throw out there during times of adversity, and you're doing it right now, is how do we maintain a positive attitude? How can we keep that positivity? Obviously, by being disciplined helps us ground ourselves, like you talked about. Being passionate about what you do. I mean, the phrase goes back to you'll never have to work a day in your life if you love what you do, right? Hopefully, you guys feel that in real estate, but also being that, having that positive attitude. How do you stay positive?
That's a great question, and I'm going to answer it by saying I don't let negativity in. And some of this is redundant because you hear me say it. And hopefully, some of you've heard me say it 151 times on Broker Up episodes. But I don't let negativity in. I read the newspaper every morning, but I get to skip the articles that are the same article, just a different day, because they love to say, "Oh, well, this." I don't need all that. I need to know what's going on in the world, but I don't watch the news and I don't listen to news stories and I don't believe most of what I read. And the reason for that is that whoever wrote it, whoever provided the information, slanted it to their point of view. Mm-hmm. And they did that for whatever their agenda is, even if they really think, I don't have an agenda, I'm just writing. Yeah, most of the time it has a slant to it. So I don't succumb to negativity because I pretty much block it out. Now, 6.5 years ago, I listened to talk radio exclusively. You talk about a negative world and making yourself negative. That was paramount to making negativity because everything in the world is wrong. And I don't believe that. And the best way for me to do that is to turn it off. And so this morning, in preparation for this, it started at Orange Theory at probably about 4:43 a.m. They played a Stones song, and I was like, okay, I need to listen to the Stones today on my way here. So I put on the Rolling Stones and sang. If you happen to be on 575 going north, you probably passed me. And if I was like this and didn't see you or anything, it's because I was singing. Because
the Rolling Stones or Stevie Wonder?
Rolling Stones. Well, yeah, I know. It could be the same thing. I was driving
on the road.
I wasn't paying attention to how I looked, but I was really priming myself to be in front of all of you today, because in a perfect world, I would have been Tom Petty, Bono, Mick Jagger, Paul McCartney, but instead I'm just me. So I was trying to get psyched up and ready to go. But I wanted to be a positive mindset. I wanted to be free of whatever might constrain me, because I believe that if I'm the one in control of my own mind and my own outcomes.
Yeah.
Me.
One thing I find success in doing, or I have to do in my own personal life, and for the years I've been in real estate, it's always held true, is that I have to have a place to go. And I don't do well working by myself or at home. But one thing that find that helps me keep positive or be disciplined is having a place to go. I would encourage you during adverse times that if you're struggling in that area, and I've seen many of you here in the office. I saw Chris this morning walk up at 6:15 or 6:20. He has a place to go. Go to your office and you'll find like-minded people who want to succeed. By staying in your own environment, you probably won't find that.
You may not.
If you find somebody there, it might be a surprise to you. But the point is your office, it could be a place that you find a lot of strength and a lot of positivity and a lot of laughter.
Go for a walk. I know it's hot as hell outside, but go for a walk. Either do it first thing in the morning or do it at night, but go out and walk in nature and just stop the negativity. Whatever you think is like, in the old days, I'd walk by the TV and I would inevitably stop in front of the TV and watch something, and I could just literally feel my blood pressure rising because of the negativity. And I was like, you know what? I don't need that. I can get my blood pressure up by taking a call from one of you. I don't need anything that I can control. Yeah. I can't control talking to you, but I can control watching TV.
In a recent article with Res Media, they talked about during difficult times, adversities and stuff like that. In order to continue your business, they focused on a few things. And one of those was networking with individuals. what would you encourage agents to do in the form of networking during this time?
This is simple. I've said it for years. This thing is really cool. It has numbers. So this is a real phone. This is an Android,
It's
not an iPhone, which means that it syncs perfectly with Google. So all my contacts are in here. And when I need to do something, when I'm commuting from point A to point B, I call it dialing for dollars. I hate to use that term, but that's what I do. I just randomly go through and pull somebody up and call them because I've got all that time. So that's what I would do, is touch base with people. And guess what? You don't have to sell them anything. You just need to talk to them. For those of you who may have friended me on Facebook, I never talk about real estate on Facebook. Never, ever, never, ever, ever. And sometimes some of you tag me and I untag it because I don't talk about real estate on my private Facebook page. And the reason for that is I can tell you that if I meet Bob or Jill today in the real estate realm, they're going to go to Facebook, pull me up, and see that I'm president of Atlanta Communities. I don't need to put it out there. And my point in saying that is that you need to connect with people, because I can tell you, people that like you are going to do business with you unless they really know you, and then they may not. But otherwise, they're going to do business with you, and the best way to do that is to connect with them. And the best way to connect with them is as a person, not as a potential buyer and not as a potential seller or not as a potential referral source, because they will do all those things automatically if you connect with them. If you're an ass, you got a whole different set of things. You need to figure out, you need to buy leads so you can be as jerky as they are. You need to do all these other things. But if you're a normal human being, you should be able to go out there and connect with other humans who then say, oh, well, you're a real estate agent. Why don't I do business with you?
Good point. So I'm going to switch gears a little bit, going from mindset and maybe just your emotions to a little bit more of work, because I want to make sure everyone's being fed as far as different topics. So how about 4 things that you should have or must have in your presentation? Your listing presentation, that is.
Well, you should have information about the property and how it relates to the competition. This is Sean's area of expertise. So this is like a test. This is like a quiz. I'm going to fail miserably. Okay. So I'm just putting that out there. I'm going to fail miserably. I say 4 things. All right. So that was one.
Oh, no. Okay. So first one, I'll help.
A listing presentation. A listing presentation. Probably one that we created. You know, why not? Right.
Well, one of the most important things is what do sellers want to know most? Value. The price.
Right.
Okay. So I think one of the most important things, and you've talked about it other times, is the why behind your pricing strategy. How did you derive? How do you get to that why factor? And the why factor oftentimes just has to be backed up by your market knowledge.
Sure.
What you gain from the marketplace. So how do we convince our sellers that we are the experts?
Well, that's now this is something I can talk about. All right. So here's the normal listing present. So let me back up. So for me today to come and be in front of all of you, this is like a listing presentation. Okay. So I approached it today that I had to make sure that I was dressed as well as I could. I had to shave. I had to make sure that I cut ear hair. I'm sorry, getting personal. Cut ear hair out of my ear, nose hairs out of my nose, because some of you might actually talk to me after the event, get up close and go, damn, he was okay, but he had ear hair, you know. So, but my point is, I had to make sure that I was presenting myself in the best light possible, given my beauty or lack thereof constraints. And I had to make sure that I seemed professional, but yet approachable, so that people would know me as a person. So the point I'm making is that when you go on a listing presentation, you should follow much of Shawn's advice, as much as possible, to know the market and to know the competition and to know everything about it. And so that when you get there, there's no question that the seller can stump you on. I would approach listings totally different than anybody probably in this room, which is I would have all that knowledge in my back pocket, but then I'm going to invite the seller to go look at the competition before I present. And the reason I'm going to do that is because it may change the seller's perception of how their house may stack up against the competition, because quite frankly, they haven't seen all the competition. That would be point number one. The second thing is I'm going to ask the seller, and habitually did this when I was in your place trying to get listings. I would ask the seller, so what do you think your home is worth? And the seller would inevitably say, well, that's why you're here. And I go, no. I know that. I have that information right here in front of me. What do you think your home is worth? I know you talked to your neighbor. I know Bob and Betty just sold, and I know they told you what they sold for and all these other things. And you hear the chatter at the pool and at the tennis courts and all. What do you think your home is worth? And the reason I want to do that is because I want the seller's number, because I have the information and the data. And now I got to bridge the gap between what their number is and what reality is. Now, if they say, let me see now, prices are so inflated now. If they say 900,000 and the data says 1.2 million, it changes my presentation. It didn't change any of my prep. It didn't change any of the data. It didn't change anything. It's just they've told me 900 and I know it's 1.2 million, and I'm so excited because that's an easy and different presentation. If they say, oh, it's worth 1.5 million and the data says it's only worth 850, that changes the spread. It changes the data, but it does. It changes the dynamic. Then I know I've got, I don't know if I can do this on the fly. Oh yeah, $300,000 spread I've got to overcome. Because my next question would be, well, why do you think that? Well, Bob and Betty sold their house. And I go, you know what? Actually, what was their address again? Actually, they only sold it for $750. I know that's hard to believe that Bob and Betty, your longtime friends, would lie to you, but they did. Sorry, you know. But really, I mean, that's one of those things where every approach is different, but my approach is always the human approach, the easy. Who wouldn't want to sit down and have a cup of coffee with me or sit at the kitchen table talking to me? That's the way I look at it, you know? And I'm going to tell them like it is. I'm going to be like, why do you think that? And did you look, have you walked around the backside of your house? Do you know your deck is falling off? Have you seen those potted plants out there that don't have any more plant in them? They have wild things growing, like acorns fell in there and started growing stuff. Have you been out there? Have you walked around to where your chimney is? There's no siding left on it. I know you drive into the thing and everything looks pretty, but that's me.
Okay.
Yeah.
How about, and part of this goes hand in hand with what we're talking about, is another component of that listing presentation is an agent being able to communicate their value. How is an agent's value best presented?
Well, one thing again, for me, everything pivots off of questions, and that is to get the seller to open up to me about the best real estate professional they've ever worked with. And the flip side of that, the worst real estate professional they've ever worked with, because interestingly enough, they're going to tell you what they like and they're going to tell you what they don't like. And then not that you're going to change how you are, you're going to change how you interact with them. And that's one of the things. Everything for me is questions. I want to be so knowledgeable. I want to have attended so many of, quite frankly, Shawn's things, his classes, so that I have that knowledge, because that's going to give me confidence, but also so that I can take all that information and in many respects keep it in my back pocket until such time as I know I need to bring it forward. So many of us on listing presentations go in and present before we know what the seller's after. And I tell you, and the reason that that's important is because unless you've asked the questions about what the seller wants to accomplish, you may have inadvertently, when you presented first, said something that the seller finds offensive or that the seller doesn't like. And again, it's not that you changed anything, but you did change how you present. Think about kids, your own children. How do you get them to do something? It's difficult and different for every child, and you have to understand the differences. And we can't treat every seller as if they're the same. Their knowledge bases are different. Everything is different. We're the experts, so we need to find out what they're after and what they want to do.
Yep. Another component of that is with your value should also be how you communicate the value of your brokerage.
See, this is where doing
No. So we have you guys have a lot to attribute, or a lot to share about your successes and the success of this company. Talking with a new agent yesterday, or maybe it was Friday or one day last week, coming from another large brokerage, and her concern was the struggle of how she was going to communicate who Atlantic Communities was, because in her mind, we weren't as big, we weren't as prominent. Because why? Is because we don't put ourselves before the agent.
Right.
Our value is focused on, I hope that you see this and feel this on a daily basis, but our value is focused on you. But there comes a place and time that you need to communicate the value of your brokerage and who you align with, who we decide to do business with. And because of your leadership and that of Jetson's and Roberts and the rest of our executive team and you agents, our success is attributed to those that are behind us that work. And we have how many offices?
7.
7 offices. How many agents?
It's getting to be a big number. I used to could count. Never mind. It's about 1,900 and something.
Yeah. We're climbing close to 2,000.
Yeah.
I believe we'll hit 2,000 this year. Maybe not, but maybe. As fast as these guys are coming in, my department feels it. How about some of our recent accolades? Are you guys aware of some of the recent accolades and awards and achievements that we've earned?
Thanks to the stuff that you gave me to send out. Yes, they are.
I mean, it's thanks to what you guys are doing, and can you share some of those? Just
I knew you were going to put me on the spot. I'm not a numbers guy. And
the first one is really easy. It's number 1 in
number 1 in FMLS market share through the end of July. And that's big. That's a moving target because all it takes is somebody to sell one more house or to do one more dollar than you've done, and you're no longer number 1. But that's a big deal.
Yeah. And
I mean, it really is. And you guys should give yourself a round of applause because it's attributed to all of you.
Yeah.
I mean, it really is.
And while we say number 1 in market share, that's of all firms for a long time. I mean, probably as long as I can remember since I've been here, we've been the number 1 independent firm
I would say
for a long time.
But that's not in dollars. That's in transactions.
Independent?
Well, that depends on what they'd always. So this is.
I could teach me something.
Well, no. This is how you start getting, everybody ducking behind things and shooting at each other and all these other things, because it depends on how you measure it. But I was thinking about Atlanta Fine Homes because they are dollar-wise, but they're not really independent.
Yeah, they're franchised.
Yeah,
so
they're
again, I'd like to attribute that success to your leadership and Jetson's. Of course,
I attribute it to all of you. Thank you for
brokers.
selling lots of houses.
Our brokers as well. So your support staff gets you that. So one last thing, as far as in your listing presentation, how about on the realm of, and again, it kind of pulls back to what resources the agents have, materials that they're able to provide.
We have the best materials. We do, bar none. We have the best marketing materials of any company in the Atlanta marketplace. Absolutely.
Hopefully you're using some of those, but this was not just our take on it, but it was also written out there in Res Media saying you should be providing your clients something to reflect on your presentation. It should have something about you, something about the company, most importantly, your pricing plan and then a summary of your marketing. Now, in our binders, it's a great place to put those. So if you're not using the listing binders and the pre-listing presentations, that's a great resource to start using. Of course, we always encourage you. We're trying to provide you, and I want you to speak on this because it really shows how I am constantly learning from you guys. But we try to put the resources in front of you that you can easily adapt to your own brand, that you can make them your own. We never want you to go out there and saying, here, this is what my company gives us. I want you to go out there and say, this is what I prepared for you. This is from me to you. It's a gift. It's a way for me to keep you informed. But when I first sat down a month or two after I was hired, back in 2016, I had a plan for those that have worked with me in the past prior to Atlanta Communities. I taught agents how to do things. I believed in that facet of saying, this is how you prepare something. This is how you put your listing presentation together, because I believed that they prepared it, then they would fall more in love with it. The hard work that went behind it. Look at Kristen out there, and she's worked with me in past and how I did that. And when I presented to Judson and Mark, and he's gonna start smiling really big, I know. And they're like, hell, Shawn, we can't do that. No, we're not going to have a list of things that agents need to go out there and buy. We just need to put it together for them. And like, no, sir, you don't quite, with all due respect, you don't understand. Can I tell you more why I do this? Nope, no, we're done. we're going to put all this stuff together for them and make sure that it's readily accessible. They can walk in the office, they can pick it up, and they can start using it.
Easier is better.
Yeah.
Easier is better. And the reason it's better is because it's easy. But it really is, and it's, you can personalize it as much as you want to, or you can pick up I was going to say standard. I know, but you're about, this is why they separated us, because I wanted to be out of arm's reach so that he couldn't hit me.
That's not true.
But easier is better. And we have the best marketing material. Nobody has what we have. Nobody has what we have. And any of these other companies don't give it to you the way we give it to you, where you get it and it doesn't, we don't make any money off of it. We just give it to you for what it cost us. And that's a big difference. It's a big, huge thing.
Yeah,
right?
Absolutely. It's a big thing. The materials you leave behind, it should be a reflection of you, your brand, and the support that you have.
Right.
And we are proud to say, as far as a company, the buyer binders and the seller binders, particularly, I think more of the seller binders, they're over close to 2,000 a year that are disseminated between you guys. That's a lot of listing presentations. It's a lot of people taking use of those tools. So hopefully, if you're not using those, ask about them. Look at our videos, how you might apply those things. But in that article, which we took some talking points from, they stress heavily making sure that you leave something of value for your clients to reflect on. They might be talking to someone else, but that information also might transfer from that client to their neighbor, to their family member, whatever, and saying, look at what I received in the facet of, I think I'm making a good decision here.
So when you approach a listing, and this is something that obviously the people that are watching somewhere else and not in here and all, but by a show of hands, how many of you typically list properties of people you know? Okay, so for those of you out that can't see what the responses were, the majority of the people in the room list properties for people they know. And my point here is that before you list a property, before you go through all that stuff, as simple as it sounds, go to the neighborhood. See the house in real life. It may have been a while before you've seen it. If they're not a friend that you deal with all the time, go lay eyes on the property. And the reason you want to do that is see how the property is presented before it's on the market. Because I can tell you, experience has taught me that if it's presented well on a day-to-day basis without anybody knowing that somebody's coming over, that's a good indication that it will also be that way when it's on the market. When my sons were young, I used to say, please don't ever bring anybody over. And inevitably, there would be, one time there was somebody's mother was in the kitchen because they brought them in through the garage. And I was like, And I told him, I said, stop bringing people over without us knowing they're coming over, because we don't live that way. We got dogs, we're not a showcase, this is not the way you do it. And my point is that you need to really get a feel for what the property is that you're going to list. And then once you go there, starting at the curb, including your sign and how it's presented and everything, you want to make sure the property is presented in its best light. And that's photographs, that's the marketing materials, that's everything related to it, starting at the front door. Because I can tell you, the first place where a lot of potential buyers are lost is at the front door, because the realtor can't get the key out of the lockbox, and they're standing there seeing the bird's nest over here and the bird duke falling down and the screen that's poked out and the mud on the front door where the dog goes in and out. And you lost them right at the beginning, because a neat person will not buy a messy house. A messy person will buy a neat house thinking, well, I can't wait to make it mine. But it won't go in reverse. So you really need to pay attention. Curb appeal has everything to do with not only how it's presented, the curb now extends to online. And you got to make sure you use professional photography, and that may include staging, moving things around, doing anything. And if the seller's not receptive to you doing that and taking that approach, maybe they're not the seller for you.
Okay.
Be the expert.
Switching gears a little bit, more of your forte being broker of record and the questions and interactions you have regularly with agents and broker related issues. What they don't tell you in real estate school.
They don't tell you everything. They don't tell you anything. They tell you how to pass the test. And everything after that is probably a surprise. What really tells you more is how are you as a person? And I come back to this often, because I'm convinced, and as often I want to shield my eyes so I don't see how you react to this. I'm convinced there's two types of people in the world. There's happy people and there's unhappy people. It's pretty much that easy. And what you have to figure out is, give me the question again.
What they don't.
Hey, it's live. What can I say?
What they don't teach you in real estate
Or
school.
what they don't teach you in real estate school. Yeah. So they don't teach you how to interact with people. And they don't really teach you how to do anything. The number one thing I can advise you to do, if you're not doing now, and that is to, are you ready? Get professional sales skills. Professional sales skills, whether that's ninja selling, whether it's something that we provide, whether for me, I'm a Zig Ziglar guy, hence the questions. I want to know everything they know, because if I know everything they know, now I know what I know plus everything they know. It's a big difference. But get some sales skills. That's the number one thing that real estate school does nothing about, nor does post license, nor does most of everything we do doesn't have anything to do with being sales, because as a society, we view sales negatively. Anybody in here deal with a professional salesperson for anything, vehicles, whatever? When you encounter a professional salesperson, you can't wait to get your wallet out and to buy whatever it is they're selling, because they make you feel so good about you that you want to do it. That's what we need to strive for. And that's not taught in real estate school. You gotta make yourself different. I'm not afraid to be up here and be different than what you normally experience. Just not.
Yep.
I should be probably, but I'm not.
Simple enough. No broker related questions or statements you want to add into theirs? I mean, I don't have any. It's good enough the way it was.
Yep. Treat everybody well, treat everybody the same. Make sure that you are doing what is in the person you're representing's best interest always, whatever that is.
I'm going to harp on one point that you make, because it falls right in line to what I often share. And I find a lot of agents make some, I think, bad marketing decisions. And you say, treat everybody the same. Talk about that a little bit. Do we have price differentiations? What I should do for a $400,000 client versus a $900,000 client?
Well, in that respect, the answer is no.
Okay.
No.
Yeah.
I think if you approach people as people, regardless of where they are, because I don't even know where this exists. Are there any $100,000 houses anymore anywhere?
Not around here.
Even dumps probably are not even $100,000. But your $100,000 buyer years ago, that was their castle. So why would you treat them any different than the $1 million buyer? And now the $1 million houses are becoming the $100,000 people. I don't know where all these people going in the middle, but I wouldn't treat them any different.
It also makes it harder on the agent. You don't have systems in place and you're making decisions every single day on how I'm going to treat somebody differently based on what you read into them or perceive of them. Your life becomes more of a challenge. Well, I'm not going to do this time. I'm going to do this now because they asked for it. But if you always have a system in place, it makes your life actually a little bit easier.
That's called McDonaldizing your business. And that is where you systematize those things that need to be systematized, which may or may not be a word, but you systemize them. And the reason that works is because then you have a checklist, and it's as simple as I have a checklist and I go down my checklist and I do everything that's on my checklist. And then that way you don't leave anybody behind and you're above reproach because you really do treat everybody exactly the same.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
All the time.
Yep.
And to that end, we at Atlanta Communities work really hard to do that. If you notice, and maybe you notice, and for some of you, it may make you mad, we don't recognize the top. I don't know who in the company sells the most houses or makes the most money in general. Just don't do it. I don't know. And the reason is because everybody in this room, everybody out there on Zoom at the webinar is equally as important to us as anybody. And that's the same way you should treat buyers, sellers, prospects, customers, clients, co-ops. Be nice to your co-ops. I don't care if they're jerky to you, be nice to your co-ops.
Thank you. The next one, we've kind of talked about, what happens during times of adversity, but I want to be more general topic and how to adapt to life's adversities. You're a person that I have come to know and admire and respect, and not just in the.
He doesn't know too many people.
That's sure. Actually, I know a lot of people. I don't have a lot of close people, but in dealing with life's adversities, the recent loss of my mother, you've lost your mother, change of jobs or whatever it may be, illnesses in families. Real estate is, as we're entrepreneurs and we run our businesses on a daily basis, personal life enters in all the time.
All the time.
Because real estate happens all the time.
All
right?
the time.
You can be someplace with family on vacation and real estate's there.
It's not me, Colin.
No.
Just
you don't get to really take time off. Sometimes we do, and we forward calls, but we're still somewhat connected to it because it's our life, it's our business. We don't get to, close the doors of some other company or walk out the doors and it's totally just dismissive because, this is our business, our life is our income. So talk about some strategies on how we deal with life's adversities in the time in having a business and running our own business.
All right. So everything, good or bad, comes back to me and what I think. And you notice probably this is true of Broker Up, Wake Up to Broker Up, as well as it is anytime any of you probably have ever talked to me before. And that is that I see things through my eyes and how I do things. And for me, the answer to your question is consistency and commitment and habit. And the reason that those things work so much is because there's a continuity that you get from doing all those things that I'm going to say makes you a little more resilient, perhaps, because you're, again, about being grounded. So just as an example, so today I had some adversity, and that was Shawn had tasked me with being here 30 minutes ahead of time so we could go to the green room. It was really not green, but go to the green room and talk a little bit before we set up here, right? And so this morning, Tuesday is trash day for me. So I had to go work out, get home, feed the dogs normal activities, start getting the trash down to the curb and all these other things. Then I go up and I have to clean out the cat's box. I have to talk to one of the cats.
And this is our president
Right.
of the company.
But my point is the same, everything is the same for everybody. And so when you think that something's happening to you individually, chances are good that it's happening to your buddy, your friend, your neighbor, your family members, to everybody else. And it's your consistency and your commitment and your habits that may make a difference in how you react to any one thing. I believe that many people in my family probably think I'm an ass because I don't go crazy about things. My parents are getting older. My dad's 91. My stepmother's 83. We've got health challenges on their side of the family. I have some other family members that have health challenges, and I don't let it take over me. I deal with it on a regular course of business. I do the things that I need to do, and then I pivot to helping them. And I'm always willing to help them, and I help them all the time, but I have to do it where it fits into what I'm doing broader picture. And this is especially difficult if it's your parents or some other relative or family member, because quite frankly, you want to get thrust back into the role of being a little child, have to do something where you have to tell your older parents, this is the way it's going to be. And you have to be resolved to do that. And for me, again, consistency, commitment, and habit make all the difference in the world. And a positive attitude. And the Rolling Stones. I mean, come on, right? Or Tom Petty, you know. I'm equally as good on either one of them.
Okay. Let's we talked about listings a little bit. Let's talk about some buyers.
Okay.
Okay. And that is focusing on your value and your value add and how you show up for buyers. How can we treat buyers?
I think buyers
better?
should have the greatest experience that they've ever had buying anything they're ever going to buy. And I believe that you can create that. So again, I know you're probably getting tired of me going back in the time machine, but back before we had these, I used to have, I probably bought more Polaroid film than anybody ever in the history of the world, because I had a Polaroid camera and I would carry it around with me. And when they found the house that they were interested in, or one of them that they were interested in, I'd make them go pose by the sign, and the house would be in the background, and I'd do it. And then I would give it to them, and we would staple it to the FMLS printout while we were out showing houses. Because what I was working towards is eliminating what wasn't going to work. Now, unfortunately, the market has been very successful eliminating what's not going to work because there ain't anything to work. So they kind of flipped it on its head. But really, you've got to know what the buyer's after and what they want. And you've got, the only way you can do that is to actually ask them questions, listen to their answers, ask more questions, listen to their answers, and have that interaction with them. But you've got to make it the best experience in the world. We are competing against Amazon and against every other grocery shopping. I'm not going to single people out because I got in trouble doing that one time before. There are grocery stores that have excellent shopping experiences, and then there's the rest of them. And you are being compared to everything that's out there that they're doing that's similar in nature, such as buying houses and doing all that. And it really is make it unique, make it distinctly for them.
Okay. Can I expand upon that a little bit?
With you. Go right
with
ahead.
you.
Okay.
So as a show of hands in the room here and online, if you just think, we'll give you a number.
Yeah.
How many of you been licensed more than 25 years? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 out of about
Oh, I have
50
I
people.
had to think. I had to do some math. That was tough.
I've been 23 years. And so if you go back 25 years, that's almost prior to the internet, and as far as how we research properties and how we got information. Okay, so with that, I like one thing that you said is I never thought about this before, and that is you took a Polaroid picture with your buyers in front of a sign that they could reflect upon. Okay. Fast forward into 2023, what do you do for your buyers to help them reflect on what property they like and what they just saw?
So now, all right, anybody who wants to turn off, if you're on Zoom, you can turn it off now, because I'm probably going to offend some people, and that is, I am going to put their asses in my vehicle. I am going to drive them around. And for those of you who say, oh, they'll never let you drive them around, they're going to follow you, they're going to do all this stuff. They go to different cities, Cincinnati, Phoenix, St. Louis, and they get into vehicles after going on some app and going, oh, well, here, our Uber will be here in 3 minutes and 33 seconds. They're coming around the corner. And you're telling me they won't get in the car with you? Well, then you need to do some more soul searching about how you connect with people.
Or clean their car out.
Or clean your car out. And the reason I want to do that is because I need to get to know them and how they tick. I need to know more about them than them following me there. They get lost. Agents still don't put directions in the system. And some of you may want them to come out so that there's no directions in there. Not me. I want to know exactly how you get to where you're going. In addition to the others, I mean, I just GPSs. Well, oftentimes. So
let's expand upon that even more so. And this is how
I want them to take notes. I want them to. I want to talk to them. I want them to get back in the car. I want to have my copy, different than their copy. My copy of what we just saw, and I'm going to sit there and I'm going to say, can you see yourself living here at this house? Well, no, it's at below street level. We're down at the bottom of the cul-de-sac. I know that when it rains, all that water is going to come down here and all. I don't think that this is the house for me. I don't want to consider it. And then I would visually take that thing up and wad it up and throw it on the floor. And then I'd ask them to take whoever the note taker is, because there's a decision maker and a note taker. The note taker, I'd say, now put a big X on that and put below street level or whatever, something that they could refer back to.
Okay.
Because I want to eliminate properties.
Yeah, absolutely.
Not find them, eliminate.
Okay. Let's go back to the basics, because some people just don't quite understand, how do I go back to the basics? How can I, be a better agent, show up for my buyers? And same thing about sellers too, but we're talking about specific buyers. How can I show up for my buyers differently than most other agents? Have to give them that experience that you're talking about. Now, I know back in the day, because I wasn't a realtor then, but when I was looking at properties, I didn't get information from my realtor when I bought my first house as far as a list of homes to go see, because they were private. The only way I could get them basically was going to the grocery store and picking up a real estate book and maybe seeing a few of the properties that were on, had opportunity to be in some type of magazine. That was the only way I knew how to get information. The other way is going to be fed by my agent. Going back to the basics, as Mark was just saying, get in the car and drive it around. What do we do today? Today we get in the car and we have the map system map out the best route, right? The thing that we're going to be in the car the least amount of time, which goes contrary to what Mark's saying, because he's actually saying work on that relationship, work on getting to know each other, build a rapport, but yet we're trying to get them out of our car as quick as possible. And so we're going to find that quickest points around from house or point 1 to point 2 to point 3 to point 4, et cetera, et cetera. Back in the day, all they did was they looked at the MLS sheets and they picked the best one and says, we're going to go see this house first. Mark, talking to you, this house aligns with what you're looking for the best. Can we go see that house? Because they actually had the same goal. Their time was much more limited than what we have today. We have a lot more time. They added time to the clock today. The way we do business today is probably 80% more efficient than what they did back then. Again, he talked about going to Eckerd's and developing film and Polaroid and things of that nature. These days, we come in and we hand it to a staff member and saying, can you put this listing in? And that job's done. It took him half day, full days, 2 days sometimes to get listings in. So you have to ask yourself, what am I doing with my time differently than these experts of 25 plus years ago? And how can they survive in that marketplace when there wasn't social media? How do people know about them? Because their clients raved about the services and didn't cease to put Judy out there time and time and time again because of how she practiced. So looking at your printouts for your buyers, share that information with them in a manner that Mark's talking about, is saying, this I feel is the best property that meets your needs. Let's go see it together.
I don't
And work
like
down through the worst.
I don't like dripping listings to buyers without me being involved.
Tell us why.
And the reason is because I want to see what they see before it goes to them. And the reason for that is they've given me their criteria, and I want to say, oh my gosh, you want to pay attention to the third listing in the series here because it's got everything that you remember how you wanted the covered deck screen porch off the great room. This has that. Remember how it had, and I can call out all those things because the tendency is, first off, there's one person, typically if it's a couple, no matter what couple it is, there's one person that cares a lot, and then there's the other person that pays for it. I'll let you figure out who's who. But what you've got to do is you've got to figure out what you're trying to do ultimately is you should know the criteria so well that you're filling the order. Not trying to get them to buy what's available, you're filling the order. And then it's just a series of, they've told me they wanted this, 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 and this. Guess what? This house has this, 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 and this. And when you send, think about your own emails in your own inbox. There's so many emails that you ignore. Mm-hmm. And you don't think that they're ignoring some of the automated emails that are coming from whatever system you've got them set up in? They're ignoring them. And you know why? Because they can't.
You know, I stumbled on the topic when I first read it that we talked about, but it says focusing on your value add and then something else. But what is your value add to buyers? If you're just turning on an automated drip campaign or signing them up on FMLS or whatever it may be, and they're just receiving properties, as a buyer, I don't really see your value yet.
There's a big concept. This doesn't really, it's not specific to real estate, but it's about data. And there are lots of data people in the world today, more so than any other time, and they love any particular data set or data from any number of things, right? And data is available. The term which a redneck like me can't really say is the democratization of data. I think I got it right for a change. And that's where data is available to everyone all the time. All the time. But the difference is who interprets the data. That's one of our value adds.
Yes.
Is interpreting the data. And the only way we can do that is to be personally involved. This is not the question you asked per se, but this is just in general, a general comment about real estate professionals today versus any other time in the history of the world. And that is, we are less involved with the people we serve than we've ever been ever before. And the reason that that's detrimental and problematic for us as an industry is the minute they're already trying, but the minute they really think they can do without us, they will do without us.
Or without you as an agent. It might not be as an industry. Just keep that in mind as you even,
maybe
drill it down.
But I don't know.
Drill it down to the point of, can they go about this process without you of finding a house?
You should do so. A lot of what I get, I don't know if I should say thankfully comes from a lot of you. I'm not sure if that's exactly what I want to say, but comes from rocks. And I'm on rocks and I see somebody lamenting. And if you're in this room or watching on Zoom, trust me, I don't know who it was, so you're safe. but they were lamenting how difficult it was for the buyer to do something another related to signing forms either through FMLS or through Georgia MLS and all these other things. And it took several times and they had to do all these other things. And all I could think of, my resounding thing was, get in your vehicle and drive to their house and get the damn thing signed and take control of the situation. And the reason that I think that one incident, that one instance makes such a difference into how we approach things, by the time they got some help and got everything figured out, I could have driven around 285 7 times. Don't be afraid to do things, because you want to set yourself different. Make yourself different. I want to be different. Then be different. I want to be the best. Then be the best. Do whatever it takes to get the job done, and don't be afraid. Gas is expensive, but I tell you what, losing a transaction is far more expensive than whatever it takes to secure it. And when you're talking about contracts, purchase and sale agreements, exhibits, amendments, etc., getting signatures on them means either the transaction moves forward or it stalls. I can tell you what, I'll drive from here to damn Snellville. No offense to you Snellville people. Everybody's somebody. It still says it on the water tower. I know. I've driven to Snellville so many times. I know that I can go out Highway 78 to Snellville, then turn right on 138 and come over to I-20 and come back in I-20. That's how many times I've been to Snellville. Or I can go left and go to Ronald Reagan Parkway to go I-85 and go that way. Snellville's right in the middle of damn near nothing or everything, depending on how you want to look. But do what other people won't do.
So I'm a pivot, but not pivot too much. Judy, sitting right here on the front row, longtime agent.
I know. She'll never sit on the front row again.
I would have picked on her in the back, because she came to see me a few weeks ago about a listing that she has. And the listing's 2.3 million. Guess where she's going after class today? To pick up listing documents at the 2.3 million. Let's circle back around to what Mark said earlier. Don't treat anybody or treat everybody the same. Treat everybody with respect and dignity. I know Judy would do this, but she would do the same thing for a $200,000 listing. Makes it easy for her clients. So it's not that hard. Some of you might say, I shouldn't say some of you. There are agents out there that says, yeah, absolutely, 2.3 million. I'm going to be there at every single showing. I'm going to be there for pick up the documents. When there's a contract, I'm going to be there to present it to them. If they have those needs, I'm going to be there. I'm going to be there because you're just ringing dollars in your mind. But however, that same person at $300,000 might have a network or a sphere, or just you creating a Raven fan that produces listing after listing after listing after listing. And one day that $2.3 million one-time sale, that other one's going to trump it. You're going to have 10, 15, 20 fall out from it, just because you treated everyone with that same respect. It comes back to the listing presentations, and also the buyer presentations courses that we give, is that if you're willing to do something when someone asks, will you put one of those big signs in my yard? We got one over here. Will you put one of those post signs in my yard? Absolutely. Absolutely. I'll take care of that the moment we go live. Will you also print some of those flyers? I mean, I used them in my last house we sold 30 years ago. I think those are worth something. When we drive around looking at properties, we like to pull that. Would you put some of them? Absolutely. I'll put those flyers out there. Will you hold an open house? I mean, every time your client asks you to do something, I guarantee you 99.9% of you out there would say, yes, I will do what you're asking, because your job's on the line. It's going to be hard to say no.
It's the culmination of, and I'll give you another example where you can shake your head, you can snicker. When you do it, please do it after the class is over. So every morning at Orange Theory Fitness, and this is at West Cobb in the Kroger parking lot in front of Orange Theory Fitness, I drive and I park in exactly, so I get there before, the only people that are there are the instructor and the front desk person. And I park at the furthest parking spot away from Orange Theory, because I'm there to exercise. Why would it matter if I have to walk 30 more steps or 50 more steps, right? So I park in the same place every time when I go there. And between there and the front door to Orange Theory Fitness, I pick up trash in the parking lot on my way into the studio every day. Sadly, there's trash there every day. But my point is, you need to get into the mindset of doing the things that need to be done, regardless of whether anybody asks you or whether, quite frankly, anybody cares. That's the point I want to make.
Mm-hmm.
Nobody asked me. And in fact, most people say, why are you picking that up? I go, because, 4,700 adults will be in this parking lot today and ain't nobody picking up this piece of trash. I don't get it. I'm just as capable as they are to pick it up.
Let me, because I share something in presentation talking about my boys, raising my boys and taking out the trash. The same thing here is if the owner of the business turned around and says, Mark, would you mind picking up that bag and bringing it to me? Mark will probably say, don't mind at all. Picked it up. And like I said, that energy that it took him to reach down and pick up that bag and walk it to the manager appreciated it. But when the manager turns around without asking and sees Mark bend over and pick up a bag, the same amount of energy was exerted. What was the response of the manager? Wow. I mean,
in general, there's no response, and I don't do it for a response. Right? No, but
people are seeing you.
Right. Well, or they're not. Well, I know I'm seeing me, and God might be seeing me.
There's an opportunity for someone to see you.
The point is that if you want, this goes to my bigger picture of life, which you're not here to talk about. But if you want to make a difference, then make a difference. Don't worry. I don't try to change the world. You know why? Because I'm worried about changing myself. And if I change myself and present myself to the world differently than whatever I've done previously, then maybe I am going to change the world. I'm not concerned about how they react to what I do. And that's the same I want you to think about your real estate business. I want you to be so much better than anybody else that people just kind of shake their head and they go, oh my God, here comes so-and-so again. That person does so much stuff that I can't keep up. That's the person you want to be. That's the person you want to be. I use the baseball. I'm a baseball guy. I use the baseball analogy and stuff. When they're fielding ground balls at batting practice or fielding practice before the game, those are millionaires who go out there and field those balls and throw them. They've only done it, I don't know, who knows how many times in their life, that same ball, that same thing, because life is, you got to practice, you got to get good. And if you take care of yourself and change how you do things, it will have an impact with the rest of the people.
Great pivot. What is your why? Why are you here?
Mine is to have impact.
Okay. I'm gonna help you. I want you to help them.
Sorry, I was wrong.
Didn't mean it like that.
Lack of impact. Whoops. Yeah.
Didn't mean it like that. But
let me rethink that.
No, have impact. Absolutely. I'm gonna help you out with these 4 points as far as what we discussed.
4 points. Yeah.
Help us discover the why. Sometimes we get into this business, or agents get into business, and I was one of them, not really having a why, just having a desire. Sounds fun, looks interesting. I can make some money, but not really having a why purpose for it. So, in defining the why, how do we help our agents better understand or, identify their why?
Well, I think, again, I think it comes from, you have to know the person in the mirror and understand how that person thinks and what that person wants to accomplish. So you have to look into yourself and figure out what it is you want to accomplish. And for most of us, is it to be successful in real estate? Is it to make money in real estate? Is it to serve people in real estate? You got to figure out what it is and then tailor what you do to match that.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Define the purpose.
Did I hit
you nailed it. Yeah. How about what value they offer to clients? Now, we've talked about just different illustrations with sellers and buyers, but what's the value add for the clients? And I think you just, again, briefed over it, but service. Let's talk about service to our clients.
Service is everything. I think you should do anything that you need to do every day, all day long, whatever that is. And I'm not saying that you don't take care of your family and you don't take care of your friends and that you work 24/7. That's not what I'm saying. I'm saying that whatever needs to be done, you raise your hand and you do it. And most times you do it before anybody asks you to do it. Be on top of it. Again, if we're talking about systems and we're talking about habits and we're talking about consistency, every day when you get up, before you interact with the world, you have the ability to have a checklist or to have some type of routine. And if I were in your shoes helping people buy and sell houses, part of that routine would be, I'm going to be ahead of the people I serve, because by the time they ask me something, I'm already behind. I want to reach out to them first thing in the morning. It could be an 8 o'clock a.m. text. I don't care that they're not going to respond until 10 a.m. I'm going to put it in their world and let them get back to me. Again, we're competing against Amazon. If I want something right today, depending on what it is, I might could have it delivered this evening at home. That's the type of thing you got to do, is whatever it takes to get it done. I've never had Amazon call me and say, well, we were going to deliver it tomorrow at 10 a.m., but, the driver said that was going to be an imposition because they had to go to another property that was over. And they've never said that. They've never said that. And that's what we're competing against. Be better, be different.
Seems better than just one word. That's what I meant by helping.
Impact. Impact. Hopefully I had an impact.
That's it.
Still looking for impact.
I'm gonna ask them a rhetorical question, and then you can answer in your thought or your what your answer is for yourself personally.
Okay.
What are 3 perceptions you wish your clients had of you? 3 perceptions you wish your clients had of you. So, Mark, what are 3 perceptions?
I wish that they would know for a fact that I'm as approachable and as real as I seem. Because I can tell you that when I go places, or maybe even today, after this is over, I oftentimes, which is kind of funny, and I know we're going to get to more of this later, but it's kind of funny because I'll be out there and nobody's talking to me. And I always find it kind of interesting because I'm petrified that people will talk to me, and yet nobody talks to me. But I'm really as real and approachable as I seem. I want to do the best I can do every single day. And the third thing would be that I want to be better today than I was yesterday, but not as good as I will be tomorrow.
Good ones. I like them.
It's true.
I believe it's true.
It is true.
So just to kind of, again, ramp things up a little bit, I want to start off on more of a light topic, because right now we're not seeing a lot of this, but it's one of those things that I do want to talk about. And that's strategies to attract top dollar offers to your listings. Now, again, I think with the age of the market, I just had a comment shared with me. I won't, share who it was from. That if we still print things the same way that we used to print, I'm like, we never stopped printing. Because, that, when the market was going so fast, we didn't really have any time to print things. And that would go back to where you have routines, and you still did because you did. You just didn't not do because you didn't have to. So there's going to be a time, and it's coming soon, I believe, that you're going to have to compete for those offers more than what you had to before. And you're going to want to drive the price up, or help drive the offers up, or even get more of them. So let's talk about, making the presentation count, the presentation of the home. You touched on it earlier with, just curb appeal. How do we talk to our sellers about getting their listings ready for the market when it comes time for presentation of the home?
I think it starts from the initial conversation with them that people, so go to the grocery store. This is a great way to understand buyer behavior. Go to the grocery store and stand there looking at the checkout lines, and you'll see very quickly that they go to the shortest line. The point being that what you have to do is make sure that the listing is ready to go from day one. It's not getting ready to go. So we're back to, I'm going to touch briefly on coming soon and all that. There is no such thing. Okay. There's no such thing. It's either ready to sell or it's not. I am not a fan of coming soon. And the reason is I don't even understand what it means. It's not Walmart. We're going to sell toilet paper next week at 2 packs for $10. But this week, well, I'm going to wait and buy it next week. That's okay. All right. That's a coming soon thing. But here, the property needs to be ready to go. And it starts with how it's presented to the world. And again, as I said earlier, go by and check out the house, see what the house looks like when nobody's expected to be there, because that's going to be an indication of how they're going to keep it or not keep it ready to go when it's on the market. And that you got one, just like me today, trimming nose hair, ear hair, and all that stuff. You probably can't see that I did all that from out there. You can't see it, but I know I did it. And the point is that you've got one opportunity to have a good first impression. And after that is just that, after that. So sellers need to understand that they need to have the house pristine and ready to go. And if that's not the way they live in real life, that's okay. But they need to pretend until they sell the house that that's the way it is every single day. They got dogs, they got kids, they got this, they got that. Those are excuses. They need to make the commitment to getting top dollar by having the house immaculate, because good properties sell faster than bad properties. And oftentimes it's something as simple as cleanliness. Sean's heard me say this before. Having the windows cleaned inside and out will subliminally make a difference to a buyer, where when they're in the house, they won't even understand what it is that makes this house sparkle. And it's because the windows are cleaned inside and out.
And the screens are off.
And the screens are off. And it's different than the other houses they went to because the windows are clean. Those are the type of differences that make that's the difference between getting a top dollar and not getting a top dollar. Buyers think they want to do HGTV, but they really don't. They want to walk in and have it turnkey exactly like it is in the finished product on HGTV. And that's what sellers need to strive to present. Because when they do, they get offers quicker and they get offers for more money.
Mm-hmm. Use the checklist in the seller binder to help your sellers get their property prepped. The checklist that you can hand off to them, that they can walk around their property and checklist things saying, yep, all doors can open and close easily, all lights work, all switches work, everything like that. Just simple things. But it's also very important, I believe, the listing presentation, you provide that feedback to them, how you visualize the house, how you saw the house when you arrived at it. Hopefully prior to that listing appointment, took notes saying, these are things that you can help with. Rhetorical question. What's the most important showing that you can have? Mark, without, for the sake of him not answering the way I want him to answer, the most important showing that you have is your photographer. It's not the first buyer. It's not the open house. The most important showing is things being, like Mark said, ready the day you go online. That's the best the property can look, because from that point forward, they're going to live in it. But the absolute best time or best showing, or for the best showing, is your photographer. That being said, I do want a show of hands. If you, and it's like, be honest, how many in the room have not listed a property this calendar year? And of course, the market is very tight right now. So raise your hand high so I can see. Okay. So if you've not listed a property right now, and that time is to come in 2 days, who's your photographer? Do you know? If you don't know, that shows a gap in your business. Have these answers, or the answers to these questions ahead of time. So number one, prior to this appointment, you can call that photographer and get them pencil in saying, when can you come? Because then you're showing commitment to your seller saying, I've already got the photographer lined up. Number two is that you can have time to vet the photographer to make sure that you're getting the quality that you deserve and your clients deserve, that you're not getting on a rock saying, anybody got a photographer they recommend. This is your business, and that photographer is an extension of you to make sure that your property presents itself well. So great presentation, curb appeal, talking to your buyer or your sellers about having their home conditioned and ready. How about also creating the shot list?
All right. So for that's photographs that you want to make sure that the photographer specifically takes, because there may be features in the property, etc. Anybody know anything about garages? So if you got a 3-car garage, 4-car garage, 5, 6, 7-car garages, there are people out there in the world that will buy a garage that has a house attached to it. And so you need to make that prominent, because those people are out there waiting for the garage to come on the market so they can buy it. Oh yeah, it's got a house too. Wow. That's really true.
It's true.
It is true. And you've got to make sure that you are presenting the property in its best light possible. And to that end, you need to assume control. So for me, that's like going to the doctor. So you go to the doctor and you tell the doctor, because you've been watching TV and they've been talking about this drug, and you go to the doctor and say, hey, I want drug such and such. And the doctor says, okay, I'll write your prescription. The doctor should take control and say, well, why do you think you need that drug? And what are your symptoms? And what's going on that you think you need that? And that's exactly what you want to do as a listing professional, is make sure that you are taking control, because the seller has invited you in to be the expert. Mm-hmm. They have not invited you in so that you can just do exactly what they say. And there, again, about being prepped and being confident and all these other things, is that you need to have all the information ready so that they don't stump you, you don't falter, and that you assume control and become the expert.
Yep. So when you list that property with that garage that everybody's wanting,
yes,
okay,
yeah,
is create that shot list for your photographer. Make sure that your photographer, and you know all the unique features and features that are going to attract the buyer. Don't just discount the 4th-car garage or the 7th-car garage. That many out there? I guess there are a few.
There are. Oh yeah.
Or the backyards or whatever, but create a shot list. Make sure that you drive interest. How about the narrative, the descriptions, the captions, the photos?
Yeah, I'm going to get shot for this, but that's not AI. Okay. Don't outsource stuff. Be creative. Ask your tween or your teenager to describe something to you, and maybe use that kind of language, because what you want to do is make it sound exciting. It may look like just a great room, but maybe it's greater than a great room. Mm-hmm. And your descriptions matter, because some people read all those. There was a time when I couldn't figure out, because there were no captions in the system, I couldn't figure out the damn difference between a keeping room and an eat-in kitchen. And there was a fireplace in the keeping room, but also a fireplace in this. I was like, well, what room is what? I don't understand. And descriptions make a difference. Mm-hmm. The reason they have captions in there is to put captions in there. It's kind of a cool thing.
And look, most of them don't have captions.
No, they do not.
And yet that's where most people are going to read things, because when you give them 3 or 4 paragraphs of stuff, they won't sit there and read the 3 or 4 paragraphs. But when they're flipping through the pictures and you mention the special type of flooring that it is, or the type of equipment that's in the exercise room, or the type of appliances in the kitchen, that's the perfect place to do it, because it's one-liners. So make use of that and draw that out to your buyer or your sellers, what you're doing, because the other agents are not going to do that. But it's one way to drive those offers. You can,
there's an old saying that says, show them, don't tell them. All you have to do literally is pull up information that's already in the system and print it out. And it's easy to differentiate yourself between the competition, because competition is telling you exactly how they're not doing things. And then you want to do things different.
Mm-hmm. Well, not to make this the Judy show, but just because she sought out some advice on this particular property we talked about, the $2.3 million property. And it reminds me, this is where a lot of our training material comes from, because a lot of what you're seeing in the last 8-10 years is back to the basic type stuff. I mean, yes, you didn't have to do much during this listing phase that we're in with short supply. But when it really comes down to it, is what you do for your clients, to get the property to sell. And so she sat down and identified the way she was going to go about this property, selling this property, because the sellers wants to obtain a lot more than what she wants to list it at. And she's put the homework assignment onto the sellers to say, tell me why. Tell me why this matters. And of course, everything they put into it has to be put out there in descriptions. But how can we now build buyer confidence in what she puts out or what you put out? So just because you jump on board with your seller and saying, yes, we're going to list it for $100,000 above what the market's asking, you've got to build buyer confidence in that. How can we as agents help our sellers put their property at the forefront amongst all the other competition, have that property looked at a little bit differently than all the other competition? How can we do that?
Photos.
Photos
Be the first thing, because when you think about how any of us start a search for property, whether it's properties here locally or whether it's properties that we're going to vacation to or whatever, how they're presented in photos makes all the difference. And you should hire the best, most affordable photographer you can hire for any one property. And they need to be people that know, like, you've seen their body of work and you go, wow, these photos are really good. There is a particular photographer that has long since retired, who was a real estate photographer. And I don't know still to this day what that photographer did. But when I looked at those photos, and they happened to have shot vacation homes, not here in Atlanta, it was like the home just jumped out, even on the computer. It was like I was there. And it had some kind of quality that I just, I never rented any of them because I couldn't afford them, but they were something else. Yeah. They were something else.
How about from the curb? What does your sign look like? You know, it goes back in the day that we were talking about, you know, before this, the quality of signs, and how do we, you know, we've even strategized on how do we encourage agents to use the post and panel signs all the time. What's the value of that, and why do that? Lights on either side. Yep. Yep. So Judy's saying, don't forget the lights. But, you know, the way you build value or help communicate value to your sellers is by what you do for the property itself. And so, you know, when a buyer drives up on that property, and if it's presented differently by the agent, if they've got a nice looking sign, if they got materials, then that begins to wear off or come across that you take that property to mean have some importance. And also the buyer's agent begins to see that. How did you interact with them? What information did you provide them? More you do to help convey that value of that property, and how you present the property, how you make it available, whether you're there or not. Again, some high-end properties, you have to be there. And most importantly, what you allow or what you offer them take with them. So keep that in mind in the marketing suite that we have. And this is things that were brought to you because this gentleman and Judson saw value in saying, we need to help our agents. And he said, make it easy. You know, create marketing pieces that are impressionable, but are easy to create and can, you know, transfer value. Our sellers can see the value that the agent offers, but also our buyers can see the value that the property presents.
And I'm going to challenge you, if you're a listing agent, to do something that you probably, maybe you've done it before as a listing agent, but if you haven't, I want you to change the way the paradigm. I want you to change the way you think. And here's the scenario. Most listing agents don't work with buyers. Many, not most, many listing agents don't work with buyers. And why is that a problem for a listing agent? Because they don't know how buyers think, and they don't present properties that would then attract buyers. They present properties based on how the seller wants it presented. But guess what? The seller's ass is moving. They ain't going to live there. So how they think of the property, if they thought so much of it, they might stay there, but they're leaving. So the point is, you got to start, if you're a listing agent, you got to make sure that you're thinking like a buyer thinks and understand how buyers work, not buyers agents per se, but how buyers work. And the reason I left buyers agents out is because many times the reason you as a listing agent don't get feedback from buyers agents is because they don't have any idea what the buyer thought, because the entire time they were in the property or whatever, they were either doing this or they were this, and they didn't, or they were standing there doing nothing and they have no idea what the buyer thought, because they either weren't trained well enough to know that they need to get that feedback, or worse, don't throw anything at me. They were that was outsourced to them. They got $50 to go show that property. You think they cared? No offense to anybody that's getting $50 for going to show the property, but do you think you care as much as if that's my buyer? I care more. I'm going to be right there with the buyer, and I'm going to know whether they liked it, didn't like it. I'm going to be able to provide valuable feedback. So my point again is to listing agents, you got to remember who's showing the property, but you got to think like a buyer. You got to think like a buyer. What would entice a buyer? What makes a difference to the buyer? Right now, it could be a 2-1 buy down. Right now, it could be some type of mortgage incentive. Right now, it could be any number of things that are more important to the buyer than they are to the seller. And too often, we're still thinking, if we're the listing agent, like the seller thinks. Don't do that.
Mhm. Yep. Perfect.
And sellers that I have are finding out that yes, what they owe is assumable and great.
Right. So she said that assumable loans are coming up as part of the listing situation, and some loans are assumable, and it behooves you, if you're the listing agent, to discuss whether or not the mortgage that's currently on the property is assumable, and if so, under what conditions, et cetera, because it may be a differentiator between that property and some other property.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah. Yes. Right, because it doesn't make sense. Right.
Yeah, absolutely. Making that sure that information is upfront, that you know about it, you can market the property.
Right.
Yes.
Yeah. Do they have a feel for
They
that
have,
now?
I think there
I
is a
thought-
assumable bill.
Yeah.
To that end, one of the things I want to caution you about, again, this is on the listing side, is automation, and specifically showing time. I've said it before, and I'm going to say it again. I'm a bit probably take darts for it again, but if I were out there doing what you do, listing property, I'd turn that crap off. They'd have to actually talk to me. I know, gosh, Mark, you're going to go from no phone calls to 20 phone calls. Yep, you're right. You know why? Because I want to talk to the people that might be bringing a buyer to that property.
Isn't that what you
I
promised
want
in
to
a listing
know.
presentation?
Huh?
Isn't that what you promised in a listing presentation?
Well,
Some agree that we're going to vet buyers. We're going to.
I just think that automation in and of itself is not bad, but you've got to know when it's a help and when it's a hindrance. And we are automating ourselves out of the process. And that's where the problem is. And I know it's more convenient. I know that, but do you want to be a professional and do things right and well, or do you want it to be convenient and easy for you because you want it to be convenient and easy? And that's the questions. Again, I'm not trying to make anybody feel bad, but you've got to ask yourself about that. You've got to say, what do I want my business to look like? Because during the frenzy of the past 3 years or however long it was, during the frenzy, think about however many, here's the picture of the listing and it's an open house and the cars are going down the block and all that. How many people that were scheduled to show that property or whatever had buyers that weren't even interested in something that property had or didn't have? And you know what? They kept appointments away from other people. Just something to think about. Again, I'm not saying I'm right.
I think you hit a very important point, because it comes back to saying those perceptions. I asked you earlier rhetorically, what 3 perceptions do you want your client to think of you about? I don't know how to sum this up, but maybe in the sense that one of those perceptions might be, my client knows how to use technology. I never hear from them about showings. I don't think that you would really want that to be a perception. So I never hear from them.
I can tell you from personal experience, I had a listing one time in Indian Hills in East Cobb, and the seller was unemployed, and his wife worked out of the house, and he was unemployed. And several weeks went by, and I fielded calls, but didn't get anything on the lockbox report. And then I called him and I said, well, is anything going on? Anybody? And he said, oh yeah, there's been 5 or 6 people showing up every day. And he said, I've got a whole stack of cards for you to pick up, because he was there all day and he opened the door. He never let them hit the lockbox. So here I was thinking nobody had seen the house, and tons of people had seen the house. Again, technology is great, but you've got to understand how it impacts the personal approach.
Yeah, takes away the wow factor.
It did for me.
Yeah.
I was wild. I was like,
Even if
I was like, please make them use the lockbox. Well, it's just easier if I just open the door. Yeah, I got it. But meanwhile, I'm like an idiot.
no worry.
But I survived.
But even if you choose to, and I said I encourage at times, lockbox is important to people seeing things in schedules, doesn't prohibit you from picking up the phone and confirming that appointment that's made. As soon as it comes through your text message saying appointment was just made, by Judy, I'm gonna pick up the phone and say, hey, Judy, thanks for making the appointment. Here's some information about the property. What kind of buyer you're bringing out? Then I can call my seller and say, I talked to Judy. This is what's going to happen. This is when they're going to show it. This is extra things they're looking for, or whatever. That creates that additional collision, which again, we know that Judson loves those terms. I love that term myself. Is that collision is opportunity to make an impactful conversation, a meaningful conversation. Now our clients see us working. They see our value add in that relationship right away.
But impactful is my word.
Yes, impactful is your
right. So don't use it.
Collision.
Okay.
All right. Let's.
Maybe I was impactful.
And some of these things, it's amazing how they overlap. But we're talking about showing time, and one reason why showing time is there, and other tools that are in your resources, like there's a popular tool out there that helps you create a CMA in less than 3 to 5 minutes. How many of you at your listing presentation went out with a CMA and saying, guess what, seller? I spent 3 to 5 minutes on the CMA for you. We'd never do that, because we know that would be a slap in our face saying, oh, what, you only gave me 3 minutes of your time to create this value, this valuation of my home. But we're looking for things like that in our business, saying, how can I make these things easier? As Mark says, easier is better. Not always. Easier is not always better, because what we transfer in value, what we lose in that value. So I want to pivot now to saying, some of these technologies give us the ability to leverage our time, but how can we leverage our time and work smarter, not harder? So here, Mark is suggesting pick up the phone and call people, or answer your phone about showings. You might think that is working harder. I would disagree. I'm agree with Mark saying that's working smarter, because that's building opportunities for more business. That's building opportunities to make relationships with agents. Because if you don't do it, then your likelihood going to create a harder time when it comes time to negotiate on that property or look at your offers, because you don't have a relationship. You've not formed a bond with that other agent that's showing.
It's easy to fire you if they don't think that they don't know you. I mean, it's just that simple. It's easy for a seller to fire you. It's easier for a buyer to fire you if they don't know you, if they don't perceive that you're adding value to the transaction and all. And what makes each one of you in this room and each one of you on Zoom different from everybody else on Zoom or in this room is you and your unique personality and your unique self. And that's what you've got to kind of double down on. I've said that for a long time. You've got to, the human factor is the most important factor. I'll give you an example. Right now, it's getting bigger every day. We have a service here at Atlanta Communities where they go and show property for you. Does that happen sometimes? Is there some event or something happen that you can't be the person that goes show property? Of course you do. Of course. There's always going to be that situation. But what if, for instance, I had today on Broker Up Overtime made a decision that, you know what, Brenda could do this, because Brenda's likable. She's smarter than I am. She knows as much as I know. And I just, well, people might be excited about that.
Better to look at.
But better to look at. She has the best dresses. And you got here and Brenda was sitting up here. My point is that if they hired me, they want me. They don't want the substitute. And I'm not trying to disparage the people that serve as substitutes, but I believe that if somebody hired me, they want me. Maybe it's ego. Maybe it's just confidence that, you know what, I'm different than other people. If they hired me, they want me. And I'm going to be the person that they're going to see. Even if I have to drive to Snellville, even if I have to look at the water tower and see where everybody's somebody. Yep, that's Snellville. It's okay. I've been there before.
So how can we give us some ideas on how you would propose one, leverage your time to work smarter, not harder. In the midst of driving to Snellville, taking buyers out, for listings and showing them other competitive properties, that's putting more time into our business. So how can we work smarter in that instance?
Well, you think about technology that does help you. There are all kinds of technological tools that help us all the time. For instance, I'm a Google guy, so everything I do revolves around Gmail. And the reason for that is because it integrates to my contacts and it integrates to the world's greatest phone. That would be an Android. And I know that I can count on that. But seriously, there are all kinds of technological aids that help us, but not necessarily they're not consumer facing. They're how we do things. For instance, if you're driving down the road and you want to take a note about something, it's easy just to speak into the air and have it record a note. And the point of that is that you can leverage your time better. Again, for me, if you get up in the morning, you can, even before you go to bed, you can set up a list of things you need to accomplish, and then you accomplish those first thing in the morning, and then you have the rest of the day to interact and to talk to people on the phone and to do all those things that come up as a normal course of business. If this is a people business, which means you got to make yourself accessible to the people you serve. It's not glamorous. It's not. I remember some of you may know Rod and Nikki Oberg, who used to practice here in Atlanta. They were with RE/MAX Communities for a long time before we left the RE/MAX system. And I remember people coming to the office to see what Rod and Nikki did. And they would leave the office thinking, that's the most boring shit I've ever seen. And the reason they would think that is because they did the same thing every day. They looked at the hot sheets. They prepared letters that went out in the mail. I mean, it was about the most unglamorous thing ever. And they did it every single day. They got there at the same time. They did the same things. They left at the same time, and they accomplished all that during the day, every day. And I'm telling you, it was pretty boring. Mm-hmm. But the reward was listings and contracts and money, quite frankly, money.
Yep. Most of you in this room are Mastery Series type agents. And I say that it might be not a term that you're familiar with, but you're experienced agents. Atlanta Communities is going to be releasing a series of courses, or actually a platform of courses that are designed to serve you. They're called our Mastery Series. The Mastery Series, some of the topics might look familiar, but I encourage you, as a plug to our training, which I believe is some of the best out there, is that pay attention to some of those, because you might find that when you attend one of those courses, the information, number one, is being shared in short stints, 30 minutes to an hour max. These are not 3-hour courses. They are also going to show you tips of the trade, tips of using technology and the resources that will provide you, so you can pick up and better your business, but be watching for those and take the opportunity to attend one of those courses, either online or in person, and see if you can't add some value to your business on how to leverage your time and work smarter, not harder. The last one is something that I think is near and dear to me as far as how I think of you, and you've exemplified that throughout the day, and that is authenticity, keeping things real. Now, yeah. We know with Mark, it is what it is. I mean, what you see is what you get, the old WYSIWYG and coding and programming. There is no facade about you. So I'd like to talk on this topic for about, 15, 20 minutes, 30 minutes, different things about authenticity, because like he just alluded to, is that people are hiring you. I drive by, I live in the Milton area, and as I pass by, I pass by a lot of different real estate signs of $1 million properties. And just recently I saw 2 new signs going in the yard, and I have no idea what brokerage they're with. I have never seen these signs before. And some of you have asked, is that how they get that listing? This is probably a one-man shop or a one-woman shop or a very small company. The answer to your question, and you know it, is because of who they know. It's not the brand that they hire. It's you that they hire. The authenticity of you, the genuineness of you, what they view in you. And recently he was teaching a course and reminding agents that once you get to the table about a listing, it should be easy for you. The decision to bring you to that table has already been made. You already have credibility in the eyes of the seller. Something has come so far to say, I'm going to invite Mark over to talk to me about selling my home. Now it's his to lose. It's yours to lose. So if you do things, in a facet that reinforces that decision of why they asked you to come out, then it's your listing. And if you don't do so well, then it's your listing to lose. So authenticity. What is authenticity by your definition? How would you define it?
I think it's being who you are, and not who other people think you are, but who you really are. And it is one of my big things. I may have said this, you may have heard me say this before, but about 6.5 years ago, several things happened just kind of randomly, simultaneously in 2017. And that is that I was thankfully, or I'm hopeful that's the case, promoted to president of the company. Right after that, my wife and I went on a trip, and I bought a book that was not the book that I was after, because the book that I was after hadn't come out yet. And I bought a book, and it was How the U.S. Navy SEALs Lead and Win by Jocko Willink and Leif Babin. And I read it. We were on a trip to San Antonio, and it was just a trip where there was no agenda. We didn't have a timetable of doing anything. And then my mother passed away about 5 months after that, and I had been probably a daily caregiver to my mother. She lived separately, but she had stopped driving for like 5 years before that. And during that period of time, one of the things, and I started working out in February of 2017 as well. And during that period of time, the one thing that struck me was that for the previous 15 years, so now that's a period of 22 years, my oldest son is 23, I had lost myself because I was a dad and a husband and a broker for a company, all these other things, and I had lost who I was. And for many of you that resonates, because it happens to all of us at some point in time. And what I did was I took control of myself. And when I did, the thing that surprised me the most was the minute I did that, everything else changed. Because I changed. Because I believed that I was in control of what happened to me, what was going to happen to me. I took control of me, and it really made a huge difference in my life. And everything I've done since then is a reflection of that decision to take control and to take ownership of Mark. And the minute I did it, everything else changed. And if I look at Maslow's hierarchy of needs, that's self-actualization right up at the top. And that's when I realized what I could be if I pushed me to be me. And that's authenticity. I don't get up every day worrying about, maybe nose hair and ear hair, but beyond that, I don't really worry too much about how I'm perceived by other people. I just don't worry about it. And it's not that I'm out to inflame people or make them have bad opinions of me. It's just that I am me, and it's okay to be me. And I'm not, that's authenticity. And that's what I want to encourage all of you to do. Figure out who you are and then be who you are. And for many of us, we are spouses, we're sons, we're daughters, we're husbands, we're wives, we're all these other things. And at some point, we may have forgotten who we are, and we need to be who we are. And guess what? The byproduct of doing that means that you're better for everybody else. All those other people that you serve and that you're helpful for, you're better for all of them. It's the compound effect.
As I thought about this topic and the word authenticity, I thought about people that have meant a lot to me and whom I think are genuine, authentic. And I wrote down 3 words, and those words were their candor. It's a person of candor, being candid. It's also a person who is honest. It's also a person who is open. Their openness. They're willing to talk about just about anything because they are comfortable in their skin. And I commend you because you on a regular basis, you are perceived and received as being authentic and genuine.
Thank you.
And that's something that, again, I echo, is that if we can do that in our business, if we can do that in life, other things begin to play off. I mean, one factor about authenticity is that with it comes confidence, or the perceived nature of confidence. You're confident, and I mean, I think of Mark as being a very confident person. I don't know what's in his head. I don't know what's in his heart. As we know, we can never know that in someone. But authenticity is perceived as someone who has it, or who exhibits confidence, or who exhibits authenticity or being genuine. They're very confident about themselves. Doesn't necessarily mean they're a very strong person. We have weak moments, but that confidence in who they are, that the idea of they're comfortable with who they are, exudes a confidence. And when you exude a confidence in working in your business, that's attractable. People want a part of that. They don't want to feel like they're going to be sold a bag of goods. As Jeffrey Gitomer says in his Little Red Book of Selling, which I highly recommend, it's a fun little read.
Yes.
People people love to buy, but hate to be sold. You convince people that, something that what you have to offer, they are going to love, they will buy it all day long. But if you try to sell them on something, their guards go up. So, lost my notes. So keep that in mind. I'm gonna add something. Breath there.
Well, I was going to, but
go ahead.
No, I have to remember what it was. Sorry.
Okay. Well, I'm gonna help
I was
you out
listening
here.
to. I was listening to you, not thinking about my next thought. So
Well, here's the one I asked for permission on this.
Yeah.
I texted him last night saying I want to add something to the list, something he said years ago that made a huge impression upon me, and I think it really, it falls in our business very closely because people for a long time, and they continue to say, and they even provide ways for people to do it, but they say, you have to fake it. You fake it till you make it. And I disagree with that wholeheartedly, because if I think that you're faking it, then you're not being authentic, right? You can't be both. You can't be someone that wants to attract people because of your authenticity or genuineness, and you're out there trying to fake it. So Mark shared something years ago based on his position. It was right after, I believe you were promoted to president of the company. And he goes, and I had to go back and look this up because I've got this imposter syndrome. You ever heard of the term imposter syndrome? It's a real live thing that doctors say it's in our society.
Well, thankfully I'm medicated. No, I'm kidding. I'm kidding. I'm sorry. Sorry for anybody, but
But first of all, it might be part of yours too. Meaning it might be something that you're very successful in real estate because of who you are, but sometimes you just don't realize why you're that way. And that you feel like if somebody finds out the real you, that you're going to lose your business.
It's back to authenticity and to self-actualization. So I don't know, because I don't go to a psychologist or a psychiatrist or a therapist, but I've never been clinically diagnosed with imposter syndrome. And what imposter syndrome is the idea that at some point they're going to pull back the curtain and see you sitting back there and go, oh my gosh, it's just you. And what I found out, and this has to do, so with also kind of maybe hard to believe, I'm an introvert, which most people would say, how can you be an introvert and be the person that's out in front and all that? Well, I don't have an answer for that exactly, except for when I'm not in this role, I prefer to be with my tribe and away from other people. And I'm okay being around other people, but as long as I'm with my tribe. And it's because I'm an introvert. And then I further found out, and this is through Darren Hardy, who wrote, gosh, now it's going to escape me.
You said that. I got the book upstairs. You want to borrow it?
Compound Effects.
Yes,
right.
thanks.
Thank you. And he was the editor of Success Magazine for a long time. And Darren said, oh my gosh, all of these people, these athletes, these actors, all people suffer from imposter syndrome. And the more I found out about it, the more I thought, well, gosh, that kind of sounds like me. And it's not really that I think they'll pull back the curtain and see me, but it is the idea that in many cases, it makes me stronger because I work really hard so people don't see me any other way than how I want to be seen. And again, it's about self-actualization, and you have to know who you are and you have to be confident about who you are. And confidence is a learned trait. It is sometimes innately inherent to somebody's makeup, but in many cases, it's a learned trait. And to be confident, you have to take all the collective knowledge and information that you've ever had and then be able to internalize it and make it become yours and then project that back out into the world. And, wow. Okay. So I'm not going to cry or anything. So you can calm down. But this is kind of interesting because one of the things I worry about is I ain't never been a president before, which means I got no roadmap to knowing what I should be doing as a president or not doing as a president, other than what the company asked of me, and more importantly, of what Judson and the leadership team may ask of me to do as a president of a company, because I've never been one. And we're back to now authenticity. So I oftentimes worry, am I doing what I should be doing as president? And maybe some of you out there in the real estate world are saying, am I doing what I should be doing as a listing agent, as a buyer's agent, as a real estate professional? And the overall answer for me would be, if you're asking yourself questions, the chances are good that you probably are. Because only somebody who would have enough thought to wonder whether they were doing a good job is probably more likely doing a good job, even though they can do better. I'm 62 years old, and I wish I could sit up here and tell you I know everything I need to know for tomorrow, and I don't. But the difference would be, I would say, is that I'm okay, and I'm confident that what I don't know, I can learn. And what I don't know is available to me as knowledge. And more importantly, that I'll be able, through my collective experience of all these years, be able to filter that out and figure out what the best solution is. And the bottom line of all that comes to common sense. I'm thankful for my mother and my father and my maternal and paternal grandparents and all my family for instilling in me common sense. And I can't tell you how that has served me then and now. It's never wavered. It's never changed. And that's how I approach everything I do for all of you, is just let's think about what you want to do and then figure out the path to do it. And too often we think about what we want to do, but we don't ever do it. So you've got to figure out where you want to go and then chart the course to go it. And more importantly, then take the steps to get on the course to doing it. And this comes from a person, fly by the seat of your pants. I joined the Marine Corps because I was looking for something to do and decided I wanted to get into aviation and figured it was better that somebody else pay for it. And in this case, it happened to be the Marine Corps. And literally everybody was shocked that I signed up. I did it on a Friday afternoon in Midtown Atlanta at Peachtree, right there at Brookwood Station. There was a recruiting station there, and I kind of on a lark on my way home from work, drove there and signed up. And everybody said, "You did what?" But it was pivotal to me because then through my Marine Corps career, up until we went to Desert Storm, I was a very, very good Marine. It was very easy to shine above everybody else because the path was well laid out. All you had to do was follow. This is what we do. This is how you do it. And the way you can be a little better than anybody else is to do it just a little better than anybody else. And then after we got back from the war, I decided that I was not happy just being their Marine. I wanted to be my Marine, and I started flexing my muscles, which is why I got out, because it's a long story, but I started doing things differently, and it was received well by some and not by others, because I was not going to just do things because I was told to do them. And that's the rebel in me. That's how rebels end up in charge of anything, is because at some point you think, well, you know what, I could probably make a difference and do better. That was a long answer to
That's good.
imposter syndrome. I'm telling you,
Had my-
it'll make you better as long as you understand that, you know what, you're worthy. You can do this. You can do this. And gosh, it's been so long ago. So from 1978, some of you weren't even born then. So from 1978 to 1982, I worked in retail here in Atlanta, and I ran a store, clothing store, Chess King, for those of you in the know. They owned Foxmore and Tom McCann shoes, and they were owned by the Melville Corporation. And I ran a store, and I used to tell people that we would hire to be our people on the floor. I'd say, well, pretend like you're in a play. It doesn't matter that at home you won't do what you're going to do here, talk to all these people and all. But here you get to play the role of, I'm the helpful salesperson. And that's how I got them to do it. And it was just like, I said, well, okay, you can come in here. And they were like, I'm not like this at home. And I'd be like, hey, it's okay. You'll be okay. And that's how they did it. So the point is, if you need to change the way you approach people, then figure out what you want to do and then make yourself do it. Make yourself do it.
Yep. On the note of being authentic and being genuine, if you don't know or haven't already experienced Mark as that person, he will answer your phone calls. If this has inspired you, or this dialogue that we've had has inspired you, or you have questions, I'll put him out there. I mean, give him a phone call if you have questions or interest in how, on a thought process, or his opinion on things, like himself, like me, he has opinions.
Got lots of opinions.
Reach out to your broker. If it's about marketing and you want some help with that, how to be, a better you, talk to myself or send marketing@atlanticommunities.net an email and make an appointment, how we can help you strive to be a better version of yourself on how the public sees it. Not change who you are, just elevate, in their perception of who you are. So thank you for your time today.
You are quite welcome.
Anything you want to add?
Just make sure that you're going out there and doing what you need to do to be successful. And if you're unsure what you need to do to be successful, then call your broker, reach out to somebody on the team, and make sure that they're there. And we are about to announce something because I can see the notes being passed.
Yeah. We do have some microphones. Any questions in the audience? Any questions you want to ask of Mark while we're here today?
Anybody going to come up and talk to me when we are eating lunch? It's okay to come and talk to me.
Okay, I mentioned several times buyer binders and seller binders. Those are always available in your office. You can pick those up at the front desk, even here at Woodstock while you're here. If you're watching from Zoom or on Facebook, each office has seller binders and buyer binders.